Hi there and welcome or welcome back to my channel. So today let's chat about this book I wrote. And those of you who know me are probably wondering, what do you mean it was the easiest thing in your life? Haven't you been working on this book for over 10 years? We've all been waiting. Where's the book? What's going on? Well, here's the real kicker. It's not that book that I've been working on forever. It's a brand new book that I just conceived of less than 4 weeks ago. And now it's complete at almost 34,000 words. I wrote it in 3 weeks and 5 days. I know there are so many different writers. There are slow writers, fast writers. For some of you, it's going to be like, oh, that's totally fine. Like that's like NaNoWriMo, even less so because during NaNoWriMo, you write 50,000 words during 1 month when, it was still a thing. But for me, it's a lot of words. And more than that, it's a lot of words for the same project. So I've participated before and I wrote a lot of words in a month, but it was kind of, I couldn't push myself to write because maybe I wasn't sure what it was that I was writing. And so I couldn't consistently write so many words when I didn't know what was happening in that chapter, for example. And so what I did, I would just write anything, it didn't have to be the same project. It just had to be a lot of writing. And I was exhausted and burned out by the end of it when I tried it. So this is such an accomplishment for me. The fact that not only did I write just a crazy amount of words for me, I also wrote a complete book. It was not anything random. Most of it is clean writing in terms of it's still first draft. It's first draft quality, but there's not really much of any kind of little comments like, oh, figure this out later, or, character name here. Barely any of that. So it's basically a complete novel with obviously many, many revisions on the way. But for me, it's major. It's massive. It's completely unprecedented. And the way it happened, I did not expect it to happen this month at all. In fact, I had kind of like a difficult time before I went on a little trip, which was just a 2-day trip. And so during that trip, I just relaxed and did the vacation things people are doing when they are on a trip. And I didn't think about writing or anything like that. I was just enjoying myself. And the trip that I took was to Great Wolf Lodge. Those of you who have been know that there are different kind of attractions in Great Wolf Lodge. There's a water park. There are all sorts of like kids things. And one of the kids things is a Magi quest. And, there are different names to this game, but it's basically an interactive game that kids can play. And they use different wands and they go on different missions and stuff like that. So me being a big Potterhead and, everything that comes with it, I love this quest. I've done it a couple of times. And what usually happens is my child gets, he would get tired of it. And then I take over and I have the time of my life playing this thing. And so I was playing it when I had this book idea. And it wasn't even a book idea. It was more like, what if, wondering, I was playing this quest and I was, doing all the things and, the displays throughout the resort, they kind of send you different ways and there are different messages they show you. So there was one moment where I was in a corridor. I was by myself, so nobody else was nearby. And I thought, what if it showed me something different? Something very different from what it's showing everybody else. Wouldn't that be fun, but also kind of creepy? And so this was the little seed of the idea that I got. And the more I thought about it, the clearer the story became in my head. And so this was basically our very last day there. And so on our way home, which was several hours, I spent the entire trip just jotting down all the notes that I had, just stemming from this original idea. And by the time I came home, I basically had a very, very good understanding of what the story is going to be. And so I started working on it. So what I told myself, I never outlined. I think I had a good understanding of kind of how it's going to begin, how it's going to end, kind of what's going to happen on the way. But it was never outlined in any kind of formal way. So I just told myself, okay, so we came back, I want to say Sunday. And I told myself, okay, tomorrow on Monday, I'll sit down and I'll try to start writing this story. And I want to, if I want to tell this story, I really want to tell it fast. I don't want to wait another 10 years. I want to do it fast. I want to tell it now, especially now that I'm so passionately burning with this idea. You know, once you start moving it, stretching it past a certain amount of time, you kind of lose that fire that originally burned, right, when you got this idea. And so I was like, okay, how about I maximize this fire? And so I start writing, and I write a lot. And so that's how I decided I'm going to write at least 1,000 words a day, because I knew it was middle grade, and currently middle grade, even fantasy, ideally should stay under 50,000 words. That's just a part of how the publishing industry wants it now. And so even though it's a fantasy work, which usually tends to be longer, I knew a first draft of around 30,000 words would be just fine. And so I decided I'm going to work on it for a month. I want to finish this book in a month. So every day I will be writing 1,000 words or more. And so that's what I did. And there were days when it was really difficult, when I was sick or there was work and other things to take care of. But I was so set on my goal of 1,000 words that even if I couldn't hit anywhere close to it in the morning, I then followed up in the evening. Worst case scenario, maybe a couple of days, I couldn't do it in one day, but I just made up for it the following day. And so there were also a couple of days when I did like over 2,000, and today was the day when I did over 3,000 words, because I really wanted to finish the story today. I was like, okay, it's happening today. And so I have a book. It is a contemporary fantasy for middle grade readers. And yeah, I'm excited about it. And honestly, there are many ways I'm thinking about how this happened. One of them is the big magic idea that I read in Elizabeth Gilbert's book. The way she thinks of inspiration, of writing inspiration, is as if there are stories just kind of like floating in the air, wanting to be told. And so they're kind of floating there. And if you get one of them in your head, and if you commit to it, then, you know, the muse or somebody kind of like settles down with you. And as long as you're like passionate, you put in work, it stays there. That's one way to look at the inspiration. And another way, she also mentioned that if you do abandon your story, or if you're not diligent enough in terms of telling it, it's going to go find another author. And that's how it happens, that sometimes you've been thinking of something, then you abandon this project, and then 2 years later, somebody publishes a book, which is like exactly the concept that you wanted to create. And you're like, but this is my story. And so, yeah, so I thought, I'm not going to let this story go away. This is my story. I want to tell it. And so I did. So all of this is to say that even though it wasn't easy, I still had to put my butt in the chair and write for a long time every day. I didn't skip a single day. It felt easy in a way that it was as if, and I've heard this before, people saying it like the story was telling itself and you're just writing it down. And for the most part, that's how it felt. So I felt this continuous certainty about where the story is going. And I never, not once, had to, I brainstormed as I just thought about my story, but I never had to sit down and like think about, okay, so what could I do next? It was just like one after another. So, and then what happens, and then what happens, and then what happens. And it just came out the way it came out. You know, I have heard about it happening before. I've never experienced it myself. So usually if I have a good idea of what I'm writing, Usually it's like a short piece of book, like the beginning, then yes, it works like this. But with the entire book, with the middle specifically, which is the part that I'm always struggling with, the fact that I didn't really have to think much and it would just kept on coming, that was just amazing. And that's the part that I call easy. And another reason why I thought about the big magic is there were legit like magical moments in terms of my life and outside circumstances that were connected to the book. It's just so bizarre. But one of them was that maybe a week prior to that, in my library, sometimes we get those origamis that somebody sends to us just for fun. And it's like a whole box of origamis. And they always say like, oh, grab whatever you want. And before that, we got cranes. But this time it's like different birds and animals and stuff, I assume. And so they put a message on our communication channel at the library. And I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't interested in that. So I never went to check it out. And then like several days later, I wrote one of the scenes in the book. And in that scene, one of my characters was making an origami fox. And fox is like an important element of this story. And so the next day, the day after I wrote the scene, I'm at work and I'm just walking, on my way somewhere. And I just happened to glance at the box. I didn't even know where the box was, but it was there. So something just attracted my attention. And so I'm glancing there, and on the very top of the box, like the surface level in the middle, my fox. Like, I was like, okay, I just have to have it because it's like a little sign from the universe. It makes you believe in things. So I don't know. I just feel so good about the story. Obviously, at this stage, being the first draft, even as I write, I notice like some repetitions that should not be happening, meaning the words I'm using over and over again, or, I'm not talking about the quality of the writing. Obviously, it's just the first step. But the difference this time is that I got to the place where I can take the second step. This is going to be my very first time revising, and this is exciting. And I know obviously my draft is nowhere near where it needs to be in terms of quality. I made a mistake of beginning to read this book recently because it's a middle grade and I want to read more middle grade so I kind of get a better grasp of what exactly it is that I'm doing. And it's so well written. I'm like, like this is not good for my mental health right now. But I will read it when I'm ready for it. But what I want to say is that you cannot compare your first draft to somebody's published novel. So two very different things, and I'm aware of that. Anyways, today I just wanted to share this good news. I wanted to celebrate this little victory that I have, this big victory that I have. I wrote a book, and how exciting is this? And so I want to hear about your projects. I know some of you have finished a book, multiple books, and that's amazing. So please share what you're working on right now. But for those of you who maybe are still trying, let me know what it is. Like, how long have you been working on it? And what is it that's, maybe hindering your progress? And maybe we can brainstorm together and try to figure out a solution to that. But that's going to be it from me today. I'm so excited to share these news with you, and I'm so happy. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.